Welcome everyone to Building a Dream Team, Strategies for Staffing Excellence. I am Nisha Sridhar, Marketing and Events Manager, and it's great to see you all here today. It is with gratitude and respect that we acknowledge the lands on which Foresight operates are the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. And for myself, I'm speaking to you from Calgary, which is within the Treaty 7. These are the traditional lands of the Blackfoot Confederacy, the Siksika, Giinai, and Piikani First Nations, the Tsuut'ina First Nation, and Stoney Nakoda First Nation. Before we start, I want to say a few words about Foresight. Foresight is Canada's clean tech accelerator, and our goal is to make Canada the first G7 country to reach net zero. We work tirelessly to position Canada as a global leader in clean technology. We bring together clean tech innovators, industry partners, investors, government, and academia to address today's most urgent climate issues and support a global transition to a green economy. Before we begin, here are a few housekeeping notes. Please use the chat option to post your questions to the panel. This session will be recorded and you will receive the recording in a couple of days. It is now my pleasure to introduce our panelists today, Matthew Haight, founder of Backstretch Recruitment Group, and Jackie Janes, recruitment and sales specialist, Hire Talent. Over the past many years, Matthew Haight has been dedicated to the ever-changing industry of recruitment and people strategy. After graduating in commerce, Matt started his career by spending 6 years with an international workforce and HR solutions firm in Vancouver, focusing in permanent and executive recruitment. Matt founded Backstretch Recruitment Group in 2011 with a vision to address the service gap in the industry where traditional recruitment firms and HR consultants were operating with antiquated models and no longer delivering. Backstretch is leading the way companies hire. Under Matt's leadership, Backstretch has become the recruiting partner of choice for many of Canada's fastest growing technology companies and provides recruiting services across North America. And we have Jackie Janes, who brings over 15 years of extensive experience in business development and recruitment and human resource management. Throughout her career, she's demonstrated proficiency in overseeing full cycle recruitment campaigns, ensuring the placement of high quality staff and providing invaluable insights into labor market trends and talent acquisition strategies. In her role as senior account manager at a national job site, Jackie drove regional growth in key sectors like oil and gas, technology, government, and nonprofits. She spearheaded initiatives including the launch of tailored services for the Atlantic market, like an advanced application tracking system and website enhancements. Jackie's expertise lies in leveraging traditional and digital platforms to advise diverse clients, establishing her as a premier recruiter in Atlantic Canada with a strong track record. Welcome, Matthew and Jackie. And over to our moderator, James Shepaya, who is a senior executive in residence at Foresight, who will moderate this session. Over to you.
Thanks, Nisha. Morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. This is for anybody that's heard me sitting on my soapbox. For the CEOs, I always look at there's three key things that CEO has to do, and that's setting the direction for the organization, putting the right people in the right seats, and making sure you don't run out of money. Obviously the putting the right people in those right seats is absolutely critical to the execution of your plan. And this is somewhat easier said than done, as we would all know when we're operating in this. So what we're going to do today is we're going to look at some of the issues that you face. Please add your questions, because that's what we're here for to do today, is trying to give some direction to how to make this work. It's not an easy thing. And when you're looking at building that dream team, I know from one organization that I was with in the past, previously I was at Goldman Sachs, and the partners actually spend 20 hours a week on interviewing, spending on time. That's how important this actually is, and that's how much they commit to this. So let's start this and let's turn it over. I want both Jackie and Matthew to give a little bit more of their backgrounds, and then we'll get into some of the questions. Jackie.
Everybody, welcome from the far East Coast. I'm in St. John's, Newfoundland. My background is Really well said earlier. And I come from, academically, I come from St. FX University, where I think a lot of meeting people and putting people together really kind of took off on my career. But the last probably 15, 20 years, I came out of a hospitality hotel background, and then I kind of moved into sales and this area of recruitment, which I've really kind of been enjoying, of the whole um, placement of people and working with organizations to understand what their needs are and work with them to see not so much traditional hires, looking at the differences, what they require, and how going about and finding those people have been really enjoyable, I guess, for me. And it's been a big learning curve also, sort of thing. So, which I've really enjoyed. So that's kind of where I've been at. And now I recently just started with Hire Talent, which is a full service HR firm and recruitment firm. And this is getting a little bit salesy, but again, been really enjoying the part of working with organizations to help them keep their internal candidate, their internal customers, their employees, helping them keep them, and growth is a big thing. So that's a little bit about me.
Thanks, Jack. Matt.
Hey all, we'll be quick here because we really just want to get to questions, but just want to let you know is, yeah, 20 years, just over 20 years, focused specifically in hiring for companies, interviewed over 10,000 people, hired for over 2,000 companies in one position or another. So we're really focused on helping, like my personal mission at Baxbridge is to be the global hiring partner for clean and green technologies. That's actually why we did 76 hires for one hydrogen fuel cell company. And that's also why we're a big sponsor with Foresight. So you might see me run at some events. So we'll talk later if it makes sense.
Okay. Let's get into some of these questions. Okay, let's start right at the beginning of you're setting up an organization. I'd like to get your thoughts because I know teams struggle with this. What is a good size for a founding team? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. So I'll answer. That's we work with a lot of sort of that small to mid-sized companies that tends to go through rapid growth. That's where Baxbridge is a really good fit for. For example, we did like our best case to date is that we did 194 hires for one company in 19 months. Great journey, awesome experience. They're now the second fastest growth company in Canada. Literally, Baxbridge did every single hire for that business. We keep talking to founders because they're kind of at that stage, right? To answer, there is no like perfect answer to founding size. The things that I've seen connect and good startups to startups that I think that are facing challenges is this is what I've seen, and I'm not saying it's right. I've seen that there tends to be internally one founder that is very operationally focused, and there's one founder very growth focused. And that seems to be a great place to start for companies. Why I say that is because we do a lot of discovery calls with companies that are just starting, whether they're bootstrapped or they're sort of approaching Series A. And alarm bells do raise up, which I've seen if there's not somebody who's kind of navigating both sides of that equation. If it's a single founder, or they're an operational focus, or more of a CFO mindset or a COO mindset, and they don't have people helping on the growth side, that is an alarm bells for people who like us, but also alarm bells for people who are on the investor side, and they keep on building operational people around them. It's sort of kind of scary. So I would say is if you're a founder in this today, or you're trying to build your team, is you don't need to build around your strengths so much, is really face what you think investors will be looking for, or people that want to join your organization. And if you're not the growth person, that's fine, but find someone who's thinking about that every day when they wake up. And that's my input on founders.
Thanks, Matt. Jackie, did you want to weigh in on this one?
Yeah, you know what, it is, I kind of was thinking about the question, and much what Matt is saying is very true, but you got to always look at, if you're the founder or, you know, your start of your team sort of thing, is when are you starting to outsource too much to have to get other people to help you? So when are you outsourcing so much that you're you need to take it in-house. So those are some of the things that you need to look at. And when are you doing things that are not your expertise and you're ending up having to do them because you don't have a person that needs to assist you with those things, which you kind of find that a lot of times it's, first of all, it's the executive assistant or a mid person that you're going to have to start ramping up to bring along, or an office manager sort of thing. And those are the things that you have to look at when you want to start going for growth. And much like Matt said too, you know, your investors and stuff, they want to see growth. So part of your growth is increasing your employee base also, hopefully in a strategic way. Yeah.
You know, I could not agree more, Matt. You know, when you look at this, and from, especially as you're saying, from the investor's perspective, you say, well, there's somebody that's got the business, that like the product focus, so you've got that side, and then you need to have the business side. Um, Otherwise, the investors start looking at it and going, do you have that balance? And so I think that's absolutely critical to doing that. But now, when you're looking at, so you've set up the founding team. Now you're starting to get into the first hires, and this can be a really hard thing because how do you identify what you need next, and how do you also identify the right person for those positions, because you're going to have all sorts of constraints. Um, Maybe Jackie, you could start on this one. Where what what should somebody be looking at, the founders be looking at when they're doing this, and what are some of the traps that you really want to try and avoid in this process?
Um, you know, again, you have to look at what is it that you're doing that you shouldn't be doing. You know, where should you start on that level of moving out to start to bring people in? And I think that's important. I was talking to a couple of people about this, and you know, it's sort of, sometimes it happens organically, like, you know, depending on your relationship in the community, and you start knowing people that you start to bring into the organization, or you came from another organization, you start bringing them in. But the challenge, and I think this is kind of getting at that point, is the challenge is to make sure that you are hiring the right people in the right positions at the right time. And when does that all kind of happen? And sometimes, and it seems like Matt kind of have great experience with this going that way, is that um, you know, your first person you get in place, how much are they going to be doing, and what is the job description? I was at a meeting the other day, and that was one of the things they were talking about, is getting your job descriptions down and getting those factors that your growth is going to be positive and you're not growing too much that you bring in people that you're going to have to get lay off or move out within 6 months period. So I think it's having honest discussions within your founders team to say, okay, we need to move to this, and then where is this is, and then this is where you may need outside consultation to help you bring in that move to the next step. So,
Second, Matt.
Okay, well, so seeing this happen over and over and over again, and everyone in the room is probably thinking similarly, which is when you hear these chats about hiring, you kind of go internal and think about, what have I done in my place, or what have I learned in my place? And there's a huge lesson that I have thought a lot about around the Jim Collins book, Good to Great, which we've recently read and had our leadership team read here at Backstretches. And this kind of hit me. This is my third time through the book. It's getting the right people on the bus. And I just wanted to, if you haven't read the book, cool. But this is what it is to build a startup. After seeing this for 20 years and seeing this over and over and over again, sometimes my life is like Groundhog Day, because I'm watching these people go through these calls and these discussions, and I'm seeing this thing as like, oh my God, I've seen this like so many times. The idea of building with your team is not about a job description. It is not about a skill set. It is about getting the right people on the bus. Your job as the founder or a leadership team is not to set a mission that everyone has to follow. This is what the Good to Great philosophy, the book is about, which just is figuring out what make good companies go to great. It's a scientific perspective of, hey, this is how companies in one space went from here to here, and they all have the same thing. They got the right people on the bus. So it's great to grow, but I will say is, and I've done this myself in my company, is you need to get on the bus every day and get excited about who's on that bus. And imagine building your founding and leadership team and just the people you build. When you get on the bus, you're high-fiving each other every day and you're saying, this is awesome, where are we going today? I bring this up because this is what I think is the biggest lesson I've seen now after doing this for 20 years and seeing founding companies try to do it. You hire based on skill sets. And I see this a lot in executive search, which is actually the scariest part to do it. You can get sort of lie to yourself. Oh, this person worked at this company and this person worked at this company. But you know in your heart they're not the right person on the bus. And then they're on the bus. And then you're stuck with them on the bus. And you know in your heart they're not the right person on the bus in the first place. So my only say is just really tap into it with yourself and with people you trust and maybe even your friends and family. Is this the right person on the bus? Because here's the thing is, we're in a market just like 2 years ago is a very different market. If you set a mission 2 years ago with the wrong people on the bus, they're just taking your orders and then you're on that path, but they're not going to change with you towards the new mission because they're not excited about the journey on the bus with you. And you know in your heart they shouldn't be on the bus in the first place. So whether it's founding team or whether it's leadership team or whether it's your future hires, I think that everybody should ask the same questions. And it's like, are they the right people on the bus? I know it sounds simplistic, but Good to Great proved it. And it's totally taps into what I've learned from companies trying to hire.
You know, there was I worked with one gentleman, and he taught me something, and to exactly to your point is about getting those right people. And we've seen different tools for this. So I want to actually hit on your guys' thoughts with respect to tools to actually enable you to do that. There's two that I saw. One was early stages of WestJet was interesting because the only way to really get hired into WestJet in those early days is you actually had to know somebody that's already working there. So there was a built-in reference that actually helped them do that into scale. So they actually used their own organization for it. Another one that was I really have taken to heart was and we'll call it the spouse test. And it was on these key hires where you'd actually the process is you go out for dinner and you bring spouses. And what was fascinating about this was the reason why is something that Matt, you had actually said. You'll actually you'll hire on skills, so you're hire on the aptitude, and then we've heard the saying hire on aptitude, fire on attitude. And the spouse test was interesting because the spouses were more objective about an individual. They're not vested in the organization, and so they accept through the spouse. But this was like they brought a different perspective to the hires, and so that was another interesting tool. But what I'd like to get from you guys is what are some of those other tools that you can actually utilize in the sourcing of this and bringing on that best talent? Let's go back to Matt and Jackie.
So just to clarify, what I hear you saying is, hey, what tools assist you in recruiting to actually get to a better outcome?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the thing. I hear you that the idea of tools make you feel good because you think there's things like predictive indexes and these types of tools. And I've seen a lot of them. My customers at Backstretch try their own based on their own cultures, right? So it is your responsibility as the hiring group to actually tap into your business and your culture and figure out what works for you. My answer, though, is that the tool that's best is your intuition, which might sound kind of crazy. But after seeing it for 20 years and seeing how many times that people hire based on skill and not are the right people on the bus, that's the number one failure for sure. Because I've seen now thousands of this over and over again, like Groundhog Day. The tools that I think are valuable, the biggest one I've seen of value though, which I actually use internally at Backstretch because I've seen a whole bunch of them too, is Gallup's Strengths Finder. I think it's the most impactful tool that I've seen. And I would say, don't use this for hiring though. Use this after you've decided who you want to hire, to understand where their strengths are for real and how that matches up with your current teams. So I'll give you an example. When we hire someone at Backstretch, we get them to do strengths finders after we've made the hiring decision, because we all of that ask each other, is this the right person on the bus? Over and over and over again. Because also we're a recruiting company, so we're really good at hiring for companies, so we can do it internally, right? So like we can build amazing pipelines, we can get awesome people, we can headhunt thousands of people, we can do whatever we need to get the best person. But it's, again, you get tricky because you're like, is it the best person? Then you start convincing yourself with skills, and you have to keep on reminding yourself, is this the right person on the bus? Are we excited to work with this person daily? Are they going to represent us well? These are questions we ask now. But Gallup Strength Finder is a beautiful tool, because Gallup has done a lot of research on the science of this. And inherently, if someone's working in their strength zone, their top 5 skills, they are very happy. They're going to make you happy, and you're going to beat your competition, because everybody tries to put people in these categories, but they're not really aware of what that makes that person inherently great at. And if you really tap into what makes them inherently great at, and you give them responsibilities around that, and you remove things that are not in their strength zone, it's a really beautiful thing. And you'll realize motivating people is not that important anymore, because they're already very motivated to wake up every day because they're doing things they're great at, which is kind of what it's all about, while trying to force them to do things that they're not great at, which is what we also see with companies when they do that. They say, well, that's that person's job. We hear that. And it's like, you can try to force them to do that, but it's not valuable. First of all, they're not good at it. They wake up and they think they're a failure. And your competition is finding people that are inherently good in those roles. So in 5 years, how's this going to play out for you? So that's why I think Strengths Finders is number 1 on my list. But do it after you know it's the right person on the bus versus before. That's my input.
Great. Jackie.
Interesting story just about the spousal one. Irving, when they're hiring for their executives, they bring in the partners and they separate them. So one will, usually it's traditionally the wives go off with the wives, and the husbands go off with the husbands, and they sort of do this. And I remember a friend of mine said to me, they went through it and they said it was so super intense. But it also kind of did the job in the sense that they knew they didn't want to work for the organization, and so it actually did what it was supposed to do, sort of thing. It kind of got a relationship there. I think that when we're looking at kind of the traditional sense of, and how I came into recruitment, because I really came from a totally a sales background and love this part of it, is that there is lots of tools, and I like tools. I think but I kind of do agree with them. They're sort of for after, not necessarily in the actual hiring stage, maybe. But I think that when you get to the interview process and you're interviewing people, is really listening to what they're saying. One of the people that I worked for before, when I was doing interviews, they said, when you look at interviews in the past, they were very much of gotcha, and like, can you answer this question right away? And instead it should be, no, let's put that person at ease, so you're getting their true personality come out, or at least whatever that may be. It may work positively for your company or not, but at least get them to relax and get into the interview. And don't write off a person because of an interview. Also, I know we sometimes get so tied up of going that way, but I did an interview probably about 1.5 years ago. And when the interview ended, all 3 of us in the panel went, what happened there? And it was a little bit of a language thing. It was a little bit of nervousness. It was done online. It was done all this kind of thing. And so I went back to her afterwards, and we had a great conversation about, and she, even before I spoke to her, came back with the answer she totally missed, with a really good answer. And we had a great conversation. And so when I was talking to the hiring manager, I said, she did great. I said, I don't know what happened. And so we just kind of regrouped on her, and she's been worked out to be wonderful. So it's like Matt said, sometimes you got to go with your gut about this stuff. Well, he said your instinct, but you go with that kind of feeling of going, they really do know the organization, and they should be a good fit because you understand the organization. One of the ones we use is Hire Talent. That is a a company too that does this kind of how they would fit with the job too. And there's no right or wrong answers or anything like this, but it gives you a tool of how to work with a person instead of against a person, which is great.
I'm just gonna
You,
want to say one thing quickly is that um, there's a lot of con artist mentality and deceiving behaviors of people that are selling these assignments and assessments to you, especially as a founding group. Um, I've seen a lot of them, and I just wanted to say is be very critical of them if you're going to implement any of them in your organization. A lot of them create more harm than good, bias. And I'll also say this, as a company that drives recruiting for other companies, you got to remember that assessment drop-off is very, very important. What do I mean by that? The drop-off rate of candidates in an interview process drops off heavily once you introduce assessments. So I would say from my experience that drop-off can be somewhere between 60 to 70%. So if you believe assessments are going to get you the skills you want, just remember, if you have 100 candidates that are being considered and you involve assessments, only about 30 to 40 will be left. So the 60 that are not going to pursue this opportunity with you are and can be very excellent candidates. So this is not them saying they're lazy. This is not them saying, well, they should want to work for us. That's not true. You need to engage them and involve them in the process. And your drop-off rate could be 60% just by hinting that you have these psychometric and type of behavioral things, because especially younger demographics in the workforce, they have no time or patience for that. And we hear the older demographics say such things, well, they should want to work for us. And it's like, this has nothing to do with you. This has to do with the job market. This has to do with their opportunities. And the thing is they a lot of them are working and a lot of people are working. So for you to say we want to interview with you and then throw a 4-hour thing on you, then an assessment on you, the moment they sniff that, they are inherently going to pull away from that experience. So I just want you to be aware is, I mean, a lot of them are shysters. And if you want to implement it, great. Just ask lots of pertinent questions like, hey, tell me about your science. What companies have you worked for? Tell me the reality of how this is going to help our organization, because it does hinder and hurt, especially from candidate experience.
I could not agree more. Speaking from experience, where I went into one interview and thinking I was actually going into an interview, and they dropped a test on me, and it was like I did the test, and then and I'm getting madder and madder as I'm going through this. And at the end, it was like, well, they called and they want to pursue this, and I'm like, not a freaking chance. Are we going anywhere further? So. And Matt, you said something that I actually really, really appreciate. Too many use these tools wrong, and so you'll end up with bad results from it. It's meant to help you understand certain things, but I think that's after taking that account. So let's move on to once you've actually been able to bring somebody on. What are those key elements of you've got them now on? Things about retention, things about what you're supposed to do, like immediately when you bring them into the organization. Retention is becoming a bigger issue these days of saying, well, what are those key things that you need to look at? And I'd like to, Jackie, I'm going to turn this back to you. And we do have a question and I think there's a lot of people wondering about things like ESOPs, the stock option plans, and those tools. Are they effective? Do they work? Do they get what you really want? Or if not, what are some things that you can do? So thoughts in that regard.
When you bring somebody on is one of the biggest things, and most of the companies I deal with are smaller companies. So one of the big things is it's not the big welcome party when they arrive or anything like that, but have a process in place, your onboarding process, and have that set up with some kind of backbone to it, that it is what you want to do. I was listening to a podcast the other day and they talked about they onboarded a woman and she was a week before she knew where the bathroom was, because they had kind of gone through all the processes of what to do and things like this, but it wasn't in anybody's mindset. But she was also so like, oh God, I don't want to ask somebody about this either. So it's having an ability to introduce a person, make them feel welcomed and all that, which is very, higher level kind of hairy fairy kind of stuff. But, you know, there's nothing worse. Like I've been a new employee and there's nothing worse than trying to walk right away, waiting to get email addresses, waiting to get some kind of part that you're nobody is kind of making sure you're set up for your job, or you know what you're going to do, and get that comfort level. Because like you said, a lot of people now are just like, I'm in, I'm out. Thanks for coming out. I've applied for 5 other jobs. I'm going to keep moving, sort of thing. So the ability to bring somebody on and integrate them, or make them feel welcomed, or however you want to use that word, is very important. And I think I made a note there too. It's like, money is top as always, because you want to be knowing that everybody kind of is discussing their salaries now. More and more salaries are being released. So you want to know that you're being valued, and we still are an economy. And it's not the pool table or the free beer on Fridays that is working for people. You got to learn what a person wants, what a person needs. If somebody is asking me, I'm vacation time is what's important to me. You may ask somebody else that something else may be important to them. You can't be all things to all people. But if you get a collective of thoughts about that, I think you got to be more understanding of what people want and need, especially with the concept of hybrid, work from home, office space, all of those things. What is working for your you still have to know what is working for your team, and what is going to work for the person that you're bringing in, because you spent a lot of money to bring this person on. You've got to make sure you want to make sure it's going to work.
Matt.
So it sounds like this question's connected to onboarding. Is that fair?
It is the early stage, but I was interested because
Like early stage
onboarding.
success?
Sorry.
Like
Yeah.
early stage success?
Early stage success and
Yeah, okay.
retention.
Yeah, so there's a few things that are very interesting here. And again, you as a founder are going through a lot of these things for the first time. I think one of the biggest values, actually, after doing this for a while, is when you partner with someone like us, or whether it's Jackie or whoever, is that we've just done this so many times that we've learned from all of our failures and mistakes. So you're actually paying for competency and experience. And this is what I've seen happen over time. The Gallup, which I brought up previously from StrengthsFinder, which I actually believe is the most scientific data focused approach for these type of things, which is why I put my faith into it, because it's actually data, is the biggest question related to turnover, which Gallup learned after hundreds of thousands of surveys. And I'm going to throw a question to James. James, what do you think the greatest factor is for turnover in the first 6 months for a candidate?
Not feeling part of the team.
You're kind of close. So it is not money. It is not reviews. The biggest question that actually showed up, which is a really interesting question that actually connected to real turnover, was, do you have a best friend at work? That's actually the greatest correlation to turnover of after doing this crazy long survey, and they actually tracked people that started and actually left. That is, I think it had like 111 questions in it, and it had a whole bunch of, like, check it out yourself. Gallup knows what they're doing. So when you were building your growth, or you're talking about early stage success, I will say to you, are you creating a system where someone has a best friend at work? And it is not the boss. It can never be the boss. The boss is the person that is, from a purely capitalistic perspective, is trying to get this person's companies ramped up as quick as possible so they can start producing things. That's why people are hired in the first place. You're not hiring a best friend, right? Now, do they need a best friend? Yes, they 100% do. In fact, that's the number one reason why anyone's going to leave your organization. You might lie to yourself and say it's money. Oh, this and that. It is not true. The question is do they feel, as you said, it's a concept of being supported. So in your onboarding, I would suggest, especially in this world of remote and hybrid, is create opportunities for them to connect, create opportunities for them to have meaningful discussions, especially in that first month. Encourage it. for them to actually just do a Zoom or whatever with somebody on the team and say, hey, I'll send you a $20 gift card for lunch. Uber Eats what you need, and this is not a work meeting. So you as an owner or a boss need to set those parameters, because if they do develop real friendships from a purely capitalistic perspective, you will have lower turnover. So it's actually worth it. So that $20 gift card could save you $20,000 on an invoice or whatever that is. So something to think about. The next thing I'll say is, after seeing a whole bunch of hires, the second greatest failure for this first stage for organizations is clarity on responsibilities. This is actually something that I see a lot in founding companies. The biggest frustration for people that are starting is they have multiple bosses. Multiple people are asking them, hey, do this, do this, do this. And someone in the organization has to be the linear mindset, saying, hey, come to me, I'll talk to this person, because I need to make that first 3 months really important. Because one of the biggest stresses for new employees is who wants what by when, and how many people am I getting this to? And oh my God, should I be ranking A over B? I don't know. They need someone they can talk to about this and say, hey, I've been asked for A, B, C, D, and F. Somebody, can I ask them what I should be doing? And that's actually a huge stress for people when they're starting an organization. And then you can imagine what that feels like, is you think you have multiple bosses, and anyone senior in an organization when you're starting, it feels like your boss, right? And this is younger demographics in the workforce. One of the biggest stresses from them is actually allocation of work. This is data and this is science. So what that means is that younger demographics in the workforce, when you tell them to do something, their first response is, I'm just going to do it now and I'm going to get it done. So if you keep on throwing things on, they'll work to 8 or 10 p.m. just getting it all done. So your job as a leader, especially with the younger demographic, is say, you can have this done in 3 days. This can be done in 2 weeks, no worries. And this is really important for today. That will really reduce the stress for onboarding younger demographics, because that is one of the biggest challenges for them.
It's I got to say, that's actually really interesting. Sorry to pick a topic that is an issue that I've gone through, but when I went through joining Goldman Sachs, books have been written about their hiring process, and this process took a year, and mine was pretty quick. It was only 35 interviews, and what was fascinating about that is it actually addressed, Matt, your point. I now had not just the boss, I actually had this network already built in because this process had started it. So they had actually built that and addressed that issue, that because then you're not just sitting there, you walk in and your arms and legs are cut off and you can't even dial the phone because I don't know who to call. You actually have that built in, which makes you feel like you're part of the organization right from the start. I want to, because it was asked, I want to
Yeah, I see Logan's question here. So Logan,
Yeah,
is that what you want to ask about?
yeah, I was going to
Yeah, let's chat
say,
about that.
okay, how do you use tools for the retention? So
Okay.
specifically, one of the things,
Yeah.
like historically, we'll use employee stock option plans as a
Mhm.
way to make you feel financially connected to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's one of the tools. But before we started this, we had an interesting conversation about demographics and the changes that are taking place. So I'm curious as your thoughts about how ESOPs and other
Yeah.
tools that guys both know about. Jackie, you mentioned something else in there that I think fits into this. How does that play into this? Does it
Yeah.
work? Does it not work? Matt, let's go back to you. And
Yeah, so I'll start first because I don't want to lose this thought. So Logan, thanks for asking. I think this is something we hear for every group we work up, because we do a lot of work with startups. We love startups. We love working directly with founders and helping them grow. We hear this all the time. Hey, what can I build that's going to make the people stay? So first things first, if you look at good to great, when they learned what made companies go from good to great, it was about the right people on the bus, And there's the salary study they did at Good to Great is all the people and all the companies that went from Good to Great, the people that were actually on the bus to actually drive to Great, their salaries were actually lower than the average in the market. So I just want you to know that, and we see this every day. We think and I'm, Backstretch is my company, I get it. We think that money or the plan is the thing, but I will say what is most important is that back to this idea is, are they the right person for the bus? So you as a leader need to ask with your team or just with you, is this really the right person on the bus? And that's what you should be learning through this process of interviewing, because everyone's going to have the skills you need for the right person on the bus. Now, if they are the right person on the bus, then you need to spend time with them, truly honest, genuine time, and ask them questions around this. What is important for you? Why? Why did you mentioned you left this position because of X? Everyone will have their own, we call it at Backstretch, the emotional contract. So our job and one of our biggest strengths for you is that we are not talking just about money. We're talking, we understand these candidates, like why are they leaving? Some people are not all about money. Some people are not about ESOPs. Some people are not about stock option plans. Like I'll give you a funny story for like 2 minutes. I remember when I was first into recruiting, we found this senior software developer and I was all excited. And I was like, hey, I can't wait to extend this verbal agreement to you. Here's the stock option plan. And the person said to me is, I don't want that. I was like, what? It's like, and again, this is me at the beginning of competency building around the salary negotiations and offers. And he's like, I don't want a stock option plan. I was like, why? He's like, I've gone through this 3 times already with other companies and none of these were exercised. And if you look at the stats, the failure rate among startups is very high, and senior people tend to, some of them want them, some of them don't. So that was like a real curveball from me. I was like, what the heck? So if you know they're the right person on the bus and you've gone through a really, a good process with them, I would say sit down, have a really genuine chat with them and say, hey, what is important to you? If you can create and offer an agreement that reflects their personal motivations and interests to join you, you have done an amazing job. If you keep trying to force things on people that may not be a motivation for them, that's where we lose people. And that's, I would say is one of the values of working with companies like ours is we'll help you craft those offer agreements that are going to get that signed. Versus trying to say ESOPs or the incentive plans and things like that. And I catch myself as a founder always going back to money as well. It's just super natural. However, the candidate experience is one where they need to go home and tell their family and friends, hey, I've talked to multiple companies. This company is the one. Here's why. They talked to me about the offer, what's important for me, and here's what they've prepared for me. If you do that, your chances of signing are exceptionally high. And that's one of the values, which I love dealing with offer agreements. Like that's like, after doing this for 20 years, it's like my most exciting time to be involved with if I ever do get to be involved in something, because I love aligning motivations. Like that's like the most exciting part for me is doing that part. So yeah, so I don't know. That's my input. So Jackie, do you want to take a stab at this one as well?
Yeah, I find this question always really interesting is, what does a candidate want and what does the company provide and things. And we have in Newfoundland some really great examples of companies that have been startups that Verifin, if you don't know them, look them up. They're the most successful buyout in Canada for a tech company. And they, right from the beginning, with the 3 founders, really set up really what works for what their corporate culture is and their ideas. And they've had lots of people that have tried to copy it. Like Verifin, they started with unlimited holidays. They started with stock options. They started with very good money. They actually just basically, ruined the city. If you talk to some organizations, ruined the city for, salaries and stuff like this. And they didn't narrow themselves down to tech industries or tech kind of people. They took from all different organizations, but much going back to Matt's point, but they created a lack of a better word, but just a whole society to work for together, that their whole mission was Verafin. And as a result, people then want to work for Verafin. So you got all of that kind of part of it, of what you're going to offer, but you also create a buzz around your organization that people want to work for it. And that makes people excited to apply for your company and want to work with you. Now, it also, I know other people that I've worked with that say, I've never worked for Verafin. It's not my kind of culture that I want to work with, which is great too, because that they're gone on to something else that works for them. So I like that they've created a concept, an idea. They work with their people. They've gone from, I think, 20 people when I knew when they started to well over, I think they're going to hit the 700 mark of people working for them. So they really embraced what works for them as an organization, and then bringing in people that work with them. And they're not the same. Like, I came from a sales background in the print industry. They hired 4 of their top salespeople, all came from print sales. So they opened their mind to who they were going to take in, and it's really worked well for them. So, it's important to know what your own values are as a company, what you can offer, and be honest about it, but then working with the candidate to understand if they're the candidate you want, what they need, sort of thing.
Yeah, I just want to piggyback on that. So, Ernest, great writing here that you actually have something that's a guide, which is says you wrote that, hey, there's a guide to me, and which helps you understand what their motivations and drivers are. That's what people want, especially younger demographics. That's very important for them, because here's the thing about younger demographics is they're very loyal to their bosses and their peer groups. They are not loyal to the company, which is very different than older demographics. Older demographics have loyalty to the company. So there's a big gap here. So, and it's just like a peer group, like your friends should know what your drivers are, right? Your friends should know, oh, hey, this is, yeah, that's what Matt's like, or Matt's doing this. I mean, obviously you can tell my background, golf's really important to me. So it's just this is what we're trying to share around the offer stages, is tapping into that individual and saying to them, hey, we want you to join the team. And it truly is a team. Like, help us understand you so we can build a package that really fits you. And yeah, that's great.
Okay, so let's go back on. So now you brought them on, and you guys have talked about so how you're making sure you've got the right person. But what happens when you got the wrong one? And how? So a couple things in that regard. Can you guys address how to have those challenging conversations, and how do you know when you just should be calling it? Because I've seen, like, we all live part of this where there's been a wrong person in it and they've been there too long, and it starts poisoning the well, shall we say, causing real extended problems in the organization. So how do you, maybe thoughts on, and Jackie, we'll start with you as far as having those challenging conversations, and when do you know, okay, maybe we should actually just call this? Thoughts on that?
Well, it's always that old adage, what is it? Hire slow, fire fast. And I don't necessarily agree with that. It's just, one of the ladies I used to work for, Wendy, she was HR, she's CPHR, she was in it to win it, sort of thing. And she really taught me a lot about this, is sometimes it's best for everybody just to part ways. Um, and that works better for everybody. It may be that they go and they find where they should be, and the organization, they work out well also. But it doesn't necessarily mean, maybe there's a reason why it's not working out, because maybe this person is good for the company, but it's just an issue that is going on, and maybe you can have a discussion, an honest and frank discussion to keep the person going. But it's a challenging market to keep people that, why is it a problem? What is going on? There's so many different things that, are, are they causing an issue within the organization itself? Sometimes if again, it's back to the hiring with gut and getting rid of somebody. It's a hard thing to do, but it may be the best thing to do, but maybe sometimes you can save a person, but sometimes it might be best for everybody if you've gotten to that point. I think, but to have an honest conversation is a good mode, and don't let it go. If Don't ever let things go too long, because then you'll just end up with more of a mess on your hands.
Matt.
Yeah, so get it done in the first 3 months is my suggestion. 3 months is there for a reason. And I would say is I can't really think of an experience after seeing thousands of hires where someone had a rough first 3 months and it got better. So there's some insight. If you're sitting around as a founder and saying, hey, we can help this and we can fix this, I will tell you is I've seen way too many companies go through this and it never gets better. It only gets worse. The first 3 months is when the person should be on their best behavior. It is when they should be always showing up early, should be like, it's the beginning of a relationship, just like when you're thinking about when you first dated your partner. Think about how you were when you were first dating your partner. You are your best person at that point. So do it quickly and do it. It is not fair to you and it's not fair to them. Here's the other thing too. There's a really good leadership book called First Break All the Rules. This is what happens with a lot of leaders and founders. You spend too much time on people that need help. And the issue is that their behaviors increase for roughly 2 weeks. And then it goes back to the base level that they were already at, because you remember this person was an adult before you hired them. So don't trick yourself that you're God. And the book actually uses that word. As leaders, you can change your own behaviors because you're unique. A lot of people cannot. The issue, especially with that, is you start losing your highest performers. Your highest performers see you sucking attention to the poor performers, and the high performers are the ones that need the support, the coaching, and the guidance. And if they see that they're not getting that, hey, a LinkedIn message from Backstretch might come through and says, hey, I don't know if you heard of this new organization in Calgary. This is what they're doing. This is how much they raised. The response to that message might be received. So that's a big lesson. I really do support the first 3 months. Lean in. Here's one of the big values that I'm not too sure if everyone knows this, that when you use a company on the outside, for example, when we did 194 hires for that one organization, every single person had a 3-month guarantee on them. What does that mean? That means that you hire them, but you want to lean in the first 3 months to see if they are really the right person for that role and if they really are the right person on the bus. Because if they are not, the legal terms say that first 3 months, you can wrap it up. And also it allows companies like ours to replace for no additional investment to find the right person. So it is actually one of the breathing or enjoyments of using a real good help, because you're not in this stage of like, oh, maybe Jimmy's just not in a good mood today. You actually can ask yourself, I don't know if Jimmy's the right person. Talk to your leadership team. I don't think Jimmy's feeling good. Jimmy's not the right match. Oh, okay, cool. If Jimmy's not the right match, let's make a decision quickly. And then to find the right person is what the goal is, right? So do it quickly. It is not fair to them. It is not fair to you. Last thing I'll say is a person I used to work with who's awesome. Her name was Allison, and she shared with me, she loves this HR consultant of Europe, where this stuff she starts all of her meetings. She sits down and she says, just to clarify, everybody in your organization, they're over 18 years old or 21, depending where you're at. And the answer is always yes. And they said, okay, so everyone's adults, right? Great. Here's the agreement. They can leave you at any time, and you can wrap up your agreement with them at any time. That is the contract that we share between them. And I was like, oh, that's so interesting. Because yes, we are all adults. So I think that the moment we start acknowledging that we're all adults and leaning in, that they may not be the right match, and asking questions around that, the lesson I've had at Backstretch too is I felt something about a person, and then I'll ask my key team members at Backstretch and be like, hey, I don't know how I'm feeling about this person. And you know what the answer always is? Me too. I don't like working with this person either. And you're like, oh my goodness, why haven't we been talking about this? What are we doing? They're stressing everybody out. We're paying them a lot of money and nobody enjoys their time with this person. And it's like, so moments of connection amongst your leadership team is a good one, is you'll find that you're probably not alone. So it furthers that belief to wrap it up as quick as possible. So
Yeah.
that's my piece.
Thanks, Matt. I want to touch on something quickly. Uh, we've now, thank you, COVID, gone into way more of a hybrid working environment, which creates new challenges for how you build teams and manage teams. And I don't know, we have all the answers. I know, like, we went all remote. Now we're sort of going back to something. And as a as somebody that's managing these teams, what are you seeing are some of the things that can help making sure that you get this right? Because it's hard when your team's scattered every place. The communication, it's not like you were actually, Matt, you started one point, you said, like, we're all physically located together. Well, that's not the case anymore. And there's demographic changes taking places, all of these things. So, thoughts, Matt, on managing, in a hybrid environment?
So because I know we're wrapping up of time, I will throw this out to the group. If anybody wants to chat further, reach out to me. As you can tell, I love this whole world, and I'm happy to have a coffee. And if it's a later meeting in the day, maybe a beer. Because this is actually the value of what we really do here. Is everyone thinks we get that person hired. We do, but we've learned and we love helping shape companies and build. Here's the thing: if you're small enough, create an environment that fits for the person, right? We talked about earlier about the agreements. If you're hiring 300 people and you want to force agreements down people's throats, go ahead. Maybe you have to. But if you have the time, talk to them, figure out the agreement, and create one that makes them heard and makes them say, hey, they listen to me. They want to build a team with me. I'm part of the team. It's the same thing with this remote culture environment. If you have the freedom to build an environment that fits for your individual teammates, hallelujah, good for you. Because they're going to respect that and they're going to appreciate that. Here's the thing about Backstretch: we're fully remote. And we do that on a reason because we have the ability to, but I can hire across Canada because I always want to find the best talent. And that's just the way I'm set up. But what I found is we had one team member who actually left in the first 3 months. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And I talked to him why. He told me, he's like, I'm lonely. He's like, I want to go back to a work environment. I was like, that's a curveball. This was sort of at the beginning when remote was like, everyone was so excited about remote. And he told me, he's like, I have a dog. I'm at home and I'm lonely and I want to go to work environment. And he got a job working in a government organization in talent acquisition. He's 5 days a week from the office and we still keep in contact and he's loving it. So that's not me, right? But it is him. So that's what I mean is, if we had the abilities to, we would have created a situation that worked for that person. My ask is of everyone in the room is, if you are asking people to do what they don't want to do, make sure you respect it and share the mission around that. So if you're asking for 1 or 2 days a week, no problem. The force card is one that's going to lose your best talent always. So you can say, hey, this is why we're doing it. And then I would also say is put an expiration date on it. Say, hey, we're going to try this for 3 months. I want to get everyone's feedback through this. I think it's the right move, and it may not be. So we're going to sit down in 3 months, and I want everyone to give me their feedback. We're going to do you can do a confidential survey, say if this is working for you or not. Because remember, you're creating user experiences for team members. You're not just putting people in tasks. So, and if you're large enough and you got your system, that's great. So people can self-select themselves out of your agreement. So if you tell them, hey, like we have a few clients right now that are all office. We used to be like, oh, are you open to remote? And some of them are like, no, we're office only. And we say, you know what? Good. You know what your culture is. You know what you do. We're going to let everyone know right at the beginning. And we're going to tell them there is no flexibility on this. We've hired the good people for them. So I'm going to stop talking because we have a few minutes left here.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to, Jackie, you got like a few seconds on that? And we're gonna...
Yeah, my only comment on that, because I've actually worked from home for 15 years, is touch points. My original manager, when I started, it was a Friday check-in. It wasn't scheduled, but I knew it was coming all the time. We checked in. He made sure my week was going well. He made sure everything was going well. It was touch points. And it's back to the loneliness. I worked for 10 years before COVID at home, never found it lonely because I had sales contact. I had out see clients, worked for a company in PEI remotely. It was fine, but there was no interaction. And I just, back to the point Matt said, I just found it lonely. I was like, I need to work for a company that I can have clients, and that I don't have to need workmates, but I need clients and people that I can deal with and talk to and discuss what they need and things like that. But I needed that interaction. And so that's how you got to look at who you work for and why you want to keep a person. You know, maybe your office is open all the time, but does that person need to be there all the time?
Thanks, Jackie. Thank you, Matt. Very much appreciate the time that you spent with us. Make sure the audience knows they can actually reach out to you. So you guys are there as a resource to help them. Astrid, can you walk us out? Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Jackie, Matt, and James, of course, for another great session. It was, and everyone for joining us today too. So a few announcements that I have before closing up. The first one is the CXO program. This is a new program that is helping emerging clean tech ventures develop leadership and strength. This is directed for CEOs, CTOs, CFOs, and CSOs. So if you're interested in that, please check it out. I have pasted the link in the chat. And another interesting program that we have is with the support of NRC IRAP, we're empowering clean tech ventures to expand into global markets, accelerate innovation, and tackle climate change challenges. So check it out. I have pasted also the link in the chat for this. Application is coming up really soon. And of course, make sure to join us for the next Fireside Chat. We're going to be talking about AI empowerment and scaling your clean tech ventures. So I'm going to leave this session open for a few minutes just to have enough time to click on those links. But thank you, everyone, for joining us, and see you in the next one.